All right, welcome back to another episode of the All American Hoops Podcast, episode 126. I want to say it's either 125 or 126. I forgot to check right before the show. But joining me, as per usual, is my older brother John Driscoll.
I mean, you say as per usual. I think I've been slacking on attendance recently. It's been a couple
That's
of
okay.
crazy weeks, but excited to join you on this Tuesday edition of the All American Uber podcast. I feel like that's what we used to do back in the day. No,
That's right. It is where we used to be Tuesdays at 6. That was back when you were living here. With not as important of a job, but that didn't require you to work these long hours. But yeah, we're doing our Tuesday edition because NBA finals start tomorrow, so we definitely wanted to get at least one show in before. And yeah, I might still do one on Thursday for afterwards, but I'm not sure yet. Yeah, younger brother Matt couldn't make it tonight. He's got a big trip that he has to prep for, which I wouldn't say this. I definitely would say this to him if he was on air, but I think, but packing 2 days before a trip, that doesn't sound very Driscoll of him. I feel like we usually like to pack the day before the trip. I don't know, 2 days before. It feels a little extra if you ask me.
I went to Mexico about a month it's probably about 2 months now, and we left the day after Easter, and
Yes.
we were out in Staten Island at a family party on Easter. And I had not packed a single thing yet, and I was leaving the next morning. I do my best packing the night before, and that's how it
Exactly.
should be.
I would think that too for sure. Anyway, before we get started though, I did want to point out one thing. Give me 1 second. Okay. Oh, the lighting's better here. So, all right. So, yeah, I already told you this before the show, but went to a flea market on Saturday morning, where I was able to get this, in my opinion, a very high quality hat. Like I was able to grab all these. There were like a lot of really cheap deals. I was able to get a couple sunglasses, 2 for $20. Two like high quality sunglasses too. It's not like they were cheapy. I also bought this hat for $8, and definitely one of the high quality hats. And then after I buy my hat, 2 days later, the Giants end up signing three. I don't know if yeah, I'll say it. Well, I'll say definitely washed. At least one of them is washed up. The other two, I don't know if they were ever good enough to be called washed up. But Odell Beckham Jr., Braxton Berrios, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Yeah, obviously this is a basketball show and it's right before the finals. But John, what were your thoughts on those signings?
Yeah, so I think I like to kind of there are an I like to talk about each three individually because I think they
Yeah.
all serve a different purpose. I'll start with
Mhm.
Braxton Berrios. Um, Not as much of an out of left field signing as I wouldn't say any of these are really that much out of left field, but not as
Mhm.
much of a ridiculous signing. Um, Braxton Berrios, Gunnar Olszewski was their kind of like fourth or fifth receiver, slot guy, short, fast, punt returner, like very good punt returner. And I believe he tore his Achilles or ACL about a week ago. So I think Braxton Berrios kind of just fills that role for the Giants, which I'm glad they kind of scooped one up on the waiver wire instead of just um, the waiver wire, maybe not, maybe just free agency, right? Instead of just going into the season, like, because I think in years past you've seen them they put like Landon Collins back there. They put like guys who are very important on a down in down out basis. So I'm glad they're kind of just like shoring up that position and making sure that it's like taken care of by a player that's not going to be like integral to the offense.
Mhm.
Um, I'll save Odell for last because that's my favorite. But the Juju Smith-Schuster signing, um, that one I would say came more out of left field than others. Um, I would say, I mean, I'm just looking up his stats right now. Last year,
It was the
nothing.
last one as well, so that one it was definitely surprising for sure. It was the last one.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that's not. It's scary because he has not been impressive for about 4 or 5 years now. Well, let's call it 4 years because he was good in 2022 with the Chiefs. But um, I think this all but points to Malik Neighbors being more hurt than the Giants are letting on. I think he's going to miss.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say a significant amount of time, but I think he's going to miss a good chunk of the first half of the season, which is very unfortunate. I think I'm no doctor, but I think he had his ACL, MCL surgery after he injured it. And then I think recently they went in again and cleaned up some of like the debris and the junk that was left over from the recovery. Um, So I
Mhm.
think he is a little bit a ways away, which really stinks. I think because I think the Giants have a favorable schedule in the first like 5 6 weeks of the season, so they could
Mhm.
have gotten off to a hot start. And he's so unbelievable. He was, obviously hurt last year, but the year before he was so great with very, you know, poor quarterback play. So, and he got hurt. I think what a couple plays into or a couple drives into Jackson Dart's debut with the Giants.
That's right. That was at week 4 or 5 or something like that. Yeah.
Week 4, I think,
Yeah.
against the
Mhm.
Chargers. I was at that game.
Mhm.
But it's just unfortunate because I think everyone really wants to see him with Dart. I think this signing kind of shows
Oh,
you
yeah.
that Neighbors is not ready, and it's going to be a little bit longer. But now back to I guess to the fun part is Odell Beckham Jr. I think
Mhm.
we all are big Odell guys. He was kind of the face of the organization. While Eli was kind of Eli was obviously the face, but Eli was kind of a little bit older on his way
Mhm.
out. Giants weren't very good, or the offense wasn't very good, I should say. And Odell kind of served as that like just thunderbolt. He was not only in New York, New Jersey, but kind of nationally. You saw these guys with the yellow hair, or like the crazy curls. So
Mhm.
I think it's exciting. I'm not expecting much from him. I think he could have a couple touchdowns this year. I think they could utilize him in certain situations. I think Harbaugh really likes him and they could use him in a good way.
Mhm.
Um, but low expectations. I'm just excited to see him in number 13 again come this year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, all of them are definitely gonna serve different purposes for sure, like you said. I'd be, I this shouldn't be the first thing I say, but, like, I'm wondering I'm thinking that maybe one of them is gonna be cut before the season starts because at the end of the day, they did sign all 3 of them to minimums, and it is, like, yeah, like, I know the receiving room isn't good, but it is but it is crowded at the very least because they have, like, at least 10 guys I saw listed them, so I'm thinking one of them gets cut, but, like, which, like, isn't really a bad thing for the Giants because yeah, like, it's, like, good to have, like, extra receivers in the room to compete for a spot because, yeah, it shows, like, they'll put in the work and everything, but, yeah, like, I definitely hope that Odell isn't one of the guys that gets cut, and I don't think he's one of the guys because, like, as much as, like, as brutal as, like, the ending was to his tenure with the Giants beginning, he wasn't really bad, it was more so just, like, a locker room issue and, like, a money issue, um, but, yeah, like, the Giants, yeah, we'll call a spade, like, yeah, like, they're not necessarily in, like, the best spot either, like, they're in a rebuilding phase. Obviously, Jackson Dart is like looking like the franchise quarterback for sure. But like yeah, they're ways away. Maybe Odell. This will be the year that like Odell like even if he doesn't play well, he'll like light a spark in the locker room, and then that could be good for things long term for sure. Um, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna flip this back around because I hate wearing hats that are flat brims, and I didn't want to ruin my other one like I did my Mets hat. So I'm gonna just do that real quick. But
You should you got to shower with it.
does showering
Oh,
with it help does
that
showering with
looks
it help the
good
brim?
for that's a good backwards hat
It
though.
is, right? Yeah, yeah, so
Um,
yeah,
yeah, if you shower with it and kind of bend the brim will get a little bit softer, but
okay.
it'll be kind of like because I think I showered with this one, and the brim isn't too bent. It's not, it's not perfect, but I think they
So
sell
my
those
yeah,
like those shells now that like bend it for you. I don't know if I would ever
yeah,
do that, but
yeah, I don't know, yeah, but, like, my issue with, like, folding the brim is that I always do it off-centered, so, like I did with my first Mets hat that I bought, like, a year ago, so, yeah, I might bring it somewhere to see if they can do it for me instead, but, yeah. So anyway, yeah, let's dive into wait, no, we got one more thing. I got to do birthdays. So yeah, I'll be honest, this was a very, very thin list. So um I did not know any of the NBA guys. The one that like the best one with the one with the highest win shares, his name is Earl Boykins. He in like the early 2000s, he got like a lot of votes for six man of the year a few years in a row. But like he retired in 2008, which is like the first or second year that I started watching basketball, and then he came back after retirement from 2010 to 2012, and he played like 15 minutes a night for the Wizards, the Bucks, and the Rockets. So definitely, yeah, my ball knowledge isn't that deep just yet, but But in the baseball side, happy birthday to Raul Ibanez. He made the All Star game once, I believe. Unfortunately for him, he didn't play the Mets every single game because if he
Shame,
did,
crush the Mets.
he definitely would have made the All Star game at least 5 times. But and then the NFL side, again the only one that I was familiar with. He's not necessarily the best player, but Eddie Lacy. I believe he was a great college player at Alabama, but he wasn't. He played for
He
the
was good
Packers.
for the Packers. Yeah, he's a running
Yeah,
back. I don't know
yeah,
how impressive
mhm,
his stats were, but
yeah. Mhm.
it's sad because I remember Eddie Lacy as he kind of got a little. I think my friend group used to make fun of him for being like a fat running back because he was like just got big when he went to the NFL. But
Yeah. All right. So now we get the main portion of the show. So we got two main topics to talk about. Obviously, first one is gonna be obviously the NBA finals. It's gonna be the big talking point for the week. And everything. But also I did want to talk about Nick Wright. He does the annual club superstar around this time of year. Usually does it either towards the end of the second or third round. So definitely want to I have the picture of that saved. I'm definitely gonna share it later. But yeah, let's get into the main portion of the show, which is the Knicks versus the Thunder will be sorry, the Knicks versus the Spurs will be the NBA Finals. I said the Thunder because I did want to talk briefly actually about the series prior, which is the Thunder versus the Spurs. I should have mentioned this in the header, but the Spurs closed out the Thunder. They were down 3-2 and closed it out by winning game 6 and 7, game 7 being on the road. Obviously there's like everyone knew that it was going to be a great series. Everyone knew that the Spurs matched it pretty well with the Thunder because of how great Wemby is on defense, and he matches up super well with Chet, and Chet really got the worst of him there. But really at the end of the day, like as impressive as the Spurs were, and like obviously they won 62 games for a reason. They're an awesome team, but like deep down, I always thought in my head, you know what, at the end of the day, Spurs are this great team, but I just don't think they're ready yet. And like the Thunder won the title last year. Even though like the one of the youngest teams to ever win the title, they have the experience, they have the pieces. Shea was better in a year this year than last year in the regular season. They got a lot from their bench, but at the end of the day, the guy who was their second best player last year, Jalen Williams, was didn't play for some games, and like, when he did play, he was a total shell of himself. And then AJ Mitchell, who wasn't really a key piece last year, but he was definitely a key piece this year, especially for the first 2 rounds. And like the whole thing with the Thunder is that like how great their depth was, and like like Jalen Williams kind of gets the same treatment that Jalen Brown does, where people like try to throw like the whole like, oh no, technically the Thunder are better with J-Dub off the floor than on the floor, but that turned out to be false because obviously having an all-star secondary scorer, no matter how deep your team is, now awesome your team is on defense, turns out to be extremely important. So and then obviously losing AJ Mitchell turned out to be a big thing as well. So like no matter how great a team is, if they're not 100% healthy, you're usually gonna struggle by the end of it. So um I have a couple more things to say, but John, I was wondering if you had any more takeaways about the series or the Thunder in particular.
yeah, this series really surprised me. I thought I was really impressed by the Spurs this year. Obviously, Wemby. I love Stephon Castle. I love Harper. Love Luke Cornett. Even like
Oh
Keldon
yeah,
Johnson. Like I think
yeah.
they're a really fun team. I just thought they were too young. I thought there was no shot that they had a chance to win this series. I thought the Thunder were not only battle tested but better on paper too. And like you said, I think J-Dub going down is, um, a significant loss. But I like maybe I'm misremembering, but I remember J-Dub having like a couple of like more than a few like stinkers last playoff run, and they were able to like sustain that.
Mhm.
Um, I think SGA was better last year's run as well. Um, and you know, I first of all, I would just like to say, like, all credit to the Spurs. I'm, very, very impressed by them, terrified of Wemby. And I think that core, if this was pre the CBA negotiations that happened a few years ago, I'd be so terrified of this core because they
Oh
could
yeah.
probably afford to keep those 3 or 4 guys together. You know, the reality of it now is secure your championship now because you're not going to be able to keep all 3 of those guys.
Mm,
down the line. Maybe you will, but like you won't be able to have like good depth moving forward as well.
yeah.
Um, Something I do want to say about this series in particular, um, a lot of Chet Holmgren slander that I don't necessarily agree with. I think all Chet slander
So
for this series is totally valid. He played horrible. I don't know what it is when it comes to him and Wemby. I think Wemby is obviously the best defensive player in the league. He's 7'5", so he's not like, but I think Chet is a talented enough offensive player to figure out ways to get him. Um, what I had a problem with is a lot of the slander around Chet as a player. You're looking at a guy who's an all-star in his third season. He averaged like 17 and 9 this year. Kind of a stretch five, if you will. Um, obvious flaws in his game, but I think that this horrendous series should not define him as a player, especially in year three, as someone who's a champion and made it to the Western Conference Finals again this year. So I'm buying low on Chet stock going into the offseason. Um, but I'm not necessarily like, you know, putting any money down on him whenever they play the Spurs.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, like I saw a ton of Chet slander, and don't get me wrong, like I get why people don't like him. I feel like he's not necessarily the most likable guy. And frankly, I don't. I'm fine with saying that because I frankly don't think he really. I'd say that to his face, and I don't think he would care at all. So it's not like he's definitely a competitor for sure. But at the end of the day, he finished second in Depoy for a reason. I had Gobert over him, but yeah, he finished second in Depoy for a reason. He was the second best player on the team that won 64 games this year. Anchored the best defense in the league, brought his team to the Western Conference Finals, and I know that Shea was clearly like the offensive engine for sure. He was like the main reason why they were in the lead offense, but um Chet was the main reason for their defense. But like, and people will point out, oh no, what do you mean? They have Lou Dort, they have Alex Caruso, they have Jalen Williams. But like at the end of the day, he was like really the only consistent piece in the team. So um but like you said, he's young. Outside of Wemby and Gobert, I'm taking him over any defender in the league. And and I would say, as far as it goes for like guys that I'm building around, he like feels like the perfect void as far as it goes for like yeah, like I talk about a lot on the show. I talk about like ceiling raiser versus floor raiser. He wouldn't necessarily be the guy that I want as like if I was like building a team from scratch. Like if I was one of the expansion teams, and Chet wouldn't be one of the guys available. But if he was, I'd obviously take him. But like I would probably take a solid 25 25 plus guys over him because he's not necessarily the best offensive engine. But as far as it goes for ceiling raising, like adding on to a championship team, I don't think there are more than 20 guys that I'd rather have over him. So between his yeah, between his interior defense, his ability to stretch the floor, his touch around the rim, these are 100% things that I want to build my team around. He just happens to struggle against Wemby. It's kind of but it's like kind of similar to where trying to think of a good example. It's kind of like when Paul George or Melo, their whole thing was, oh, they can never get over the edge, but it turned out they were able to go over the edge. They just happened to run into LeBron every year. So I think we're going to see the same thing with Wemby. I I still like the Thunder's chances next year. Like if they bring back a similar core. The only unfortunate thing is that I think next year they're gonna pay the luxury tax. Not the luxury tax. They're gonna pay the price for the second apron because they didn't pay it this year because Shea wasn't making as much money, or one of them, at least one of them wasn't making like the supermax. But like next year, I think all of them are making a lot of money, and the year after that is when Shea's extension kicks in. So next year, I think they'll pay the second apron, but then so like that'll be the year that they go all the way into um to like win the finals. But the year after that is when they're going to make some decisions. Like I don't know if they're gonna I think they're going to pick up both iHeart and Lou Dort's team option for sure. Even though they'd have to pay the second apron, but I don't know if they would trade either of those guys. Like when they pick up the team option, maybe they trade them at the deadline. I'm not sure, but regardless of what happens, I do think they're going to have to make some tough decisions, and one of those might have to be trading either Chet or J Dub. And if that was the case, I would without a doubt trade J Dub because even though he was better last year, but at the end of the day, I think that J Dub is far more replaceable than what Chet does.
Definitely, definitely. I agree. I wasn't sure um, if you were going to go when you said you were going to if you had to trade one of them, which way you were going to go with it. But I totally agree. I think it's again, Chet is in what year is J Dub in? Five,
Four.
four. Okay,
Yeah.
so similar years, but like
Yeah.
Chet just finished year three, and he's like a 7 foot plus like
Yeah.
center who can
Mhm.
shoot. It's like
Yeah.
that's so much more rare than like,
Yep.
and not to take away from J Dub, a good sized wing.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. All right, so yeah, that's enough Thunder talk for now. Yeah, and I already did Knicks talk last week, so we don't need to dive deep into the Cavs series. Already talked about Donovan Mitchell, which we're going to talk further about Donovan Mitchell for sure, because in the club superstar thing. But yeah, this is going to be one hell of a matchup, and excuse me. So it's one of the most fascinating matchups because obviously it's a rematch from the 1999 finals. The New York, the Knicks, the Mecca, the Garden, everything that everyone talks about. Like obviously the Garden is the most famous arena out there. There's a reason that the tickets are $5,000 at least. There's a reason. It's on the news everywhere. Obviously it's New York at the end of the day. So like that kind of just happens naturally. But I do think out of all the New York teams outside of the New York Yankees, I do think that the Knicks are probably the most famous New York team. If maybe the Giants, but like definitely the Yankees are probably one. I think the Knicks are probably two. Um, but even though they're not necessarily gifted historically, they do have an historic team as far as goes for the fandom. More so, it's kind of like similar to the Chicago Cubs, where everyone knew them, but they kind of knew them for being bad, which is what the Knicks are known for, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, this is they've completely turned their franchise around. Not only, yeah, like obviously Brunson deserves a whole lot of credit for that. I'm not going to say otherwise, but Julius Randle was kind of the one who stepped in, brought the team to the playoffs. Then did Brunson sign there in 2023 or 2024? It was 2023, I think. It was because it was after the Luke it was after the Lucas the when they beat the Jazz. So I think that was 2022. So yeah, 2023 is when Brunson came in, and then the Knicks haven't ever really looked back since. They've gotten better every year. They've been aggressive trading for OG Anunoby, then trading for Mikal Bridges, then trading for Cat. So this is without a doubt, like yeah, they say in the NBA, in order to win, you need to make big moves, which is exactly what the Knicks have done. But at the end of the day, yeah, we all know about the Knicks, but the Spurs also they've been interesting for sure. People like the Spurs haven't been as long, but at the end of the day, like before this year, I always made the joke, like whenever it was kind of always like a snarky comment towards Greg Popovich, but like before this year, the Spurs hadn't won a playoff series since Trump's first year in his first term in office. So like it has been a while since the Spurs have been relevant, but at the end of the day, like people are going to say like, oh, it's all Wemby, which granted, a very very big slice of the pie, like not even slice, part of a big chunk of the pie is Wemby. But at the end of the day, they also made some great moves as well. They traded for De'Aaron Fox. They were aggressive at the deadline. They got
Fox
lucky
helped
with
them win that series.
what was it?
Fox was like an integral part in that
Oh,
series.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, Fox was a big part. They drafted Stephon Castle last year. He's obviously a huge part. They got lucky with the lottery last year too, or this year too, getting Dylan Harper. So and then not for nothing, also making just like very marginal moves here and there. Yeah, training for Keldon Johnson. Wait, no, he wasn't. He was a draft, I think, actually.
Keldon Johnson was there. He's been there for like
Yeah, he
four
has
or
been
five
there.
years
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But like
Also,
keeping him, like
yeah, they were patient with it. Yeah, like people were saying that he was going to be in the Fox deal, but no. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Kings fans hate Fox actually because I'm pretty sure that like he like told the Spurs to not include Castle in that trade deal, which like justifiably so. But like yeah, like
like
Fox is
why
one of
would you do that? Yeah.
yeah. Fox is one of my favorite players in the league for sure. But um but like yeah, both very very differently built teams for sure. The Knicks are very very highly built on their 3-point shooting. I don't know the Spurs 3-point numbers. Obviously, they're above average for sure, but they're more known for their defense and their rim pressure for sure. But I'm just wondering what exactly is going to be the adjustments made rotationally because I wrote down minutes played based on the playoffs so far. So Vassell actually averages the most minutes on the Spurs with 33.8. Then after that, it is I only did initials, so what the hell is SG? But like geez, I'm drawing a blank. But like yeah, Wemby's fourth though with 32.5, Champagne's 30.4.
You're
Oh,
saying who's SG on the
okay.
Spurs?
That is SC. I'm sorry, Jesus Christ, my handwriting. But that's okay. Hang on, let me start over. So, yeah, Devin Vassell 33.8. Stephon Castle 33.1. After that, yeah, Dylan Harper 32.6, Wemby 32.5, Julian Champagny 30.4, Keldon Johnson 18.7, Luke Cornett 14.1. So I think they're going to front load it personally. Wemby's only at 32.5, which he's been like in the early 30s all year long. I think I have to check to see what he was against the Thunder. Actually, I think he's going to need to make it like 38. Maybe like towards the beginning it'll be like at the 32, 35 area, but like towards the back end of the series, it's going to need to push 38 to 40 minutes, which I think that might be a little bit of a concern for sure. Especially because the Knicks they're not as bad as I shouldn't say bad. Like they're not as like rotation heavy as they were last year. Like they are relying on their bench a little more this year, but still, like Brunson 36, OG 33, Josh Hart 33, Mikhail 31, Cat 30.2, and after that, so those like all their starters are playing 30 plus minutes a night, and then after that, Miles McGrath 19.1, Mitch Robinson 14.2. So that's the first thing. I'm wondering what adjustments the Spurs are going to make to where they're playing their starters more.
Yeah, I think you can look at it from kind of like two sides of the coin, right? You can either say that it's kind of good that the Spurs haven't played their
Mhm.
guys that much, where they're kind of, quote unquote, you can't really call a team that just went 7 well rested, but um,
Yeah.
I think it's good. Because like we've criticized the Knicks in the past um and Tibbs for playing Jalen Brunson 47 minutes on Tuesday night in February. Um,
Mhm.
and they've kept their guys well rested, generally speaking. As compared to last year. Um, so I think it'll be interesting. I'm very excited for this finals. Obviously, um, we have a number of Knicks fans that we're friends with that we do not want to see too happy. Aside from a few
Yeah.
exceptions, I
Mhm.
think Uncle Blue, Uncle Tony, and maybe John Cassidy are three Knicks fans that I wouldn't be too upset to see happy about a
I
championship.
also want to give credit to and I'm shocked that we're talking about this person, but my mom's second cousin, his name is Carl, Hungarian. Okay, sorry, his Hungarian name is
Mm,
Karchi. So he texted me on my birthday. It was the day after the day after the Knicks won made the finals. But like he said, hey, I was actually in Cleveland for Game 4. So he lives in
wow.
Boston, I don't know if he drove. I'm assuming that he flew. It's a 9-hour drive from Boston to Cleveland. But like yeah, he sent me all the pictures. He's like, hey, I was actually at the game last night. So like but yeah, definitely he's 100% a real Knicks fan. Like if he's willing to drive the distance, and also he grew up in New York. Yeah. So like before anyone says he lives in Boston, what's he New York fan for? He grew up in New York and then he went to Boston College. So clearly not that smart of a guy if he's going to Boston College. By the way, that's a joke. It's a very good school. But yeah, like a little bit of a sidebar there, but yeah, definitely definitely yeah, a lot of Nick fans that are not so much yeah, like I'm not gonna not so much shame people for their Knicks fandom, but what I am gonna however do is scratch my head at the fact of like I don't think I've ever heard you talk about the Knicks before, but
Yeah, let
um
me add Johnny Lang into that list too.
yes,
He's
absolutely,
a true
100%,
Knicks
yeah,
fan. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, there's a couple of Knicks fans that I'd be happy for, but I think overall, they're I'm not going to get into our fantasy to our fantasy league because there are Knicks fans in that group chat that
Yes,
I think deserve it, but I really don't want to hear from them if they do win.
I 100% agree.
And you know
Um,
who doesn't deserve it? Bobby McCormick. That guy doesn't deserve anything for the
no, he does
Knicks.
not.
Started watching in 2024.
No, by the way, Bobby, you are not welcome on the pod, despite you asking many times after this.
That's right.
Yeah, but anyway, Yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about, however, was the Knicks spacing. So, I'm trying to see if yeah, so Players Choice posted a graphic today of all their shooters. I don't know if this was the playoffs or the regular season. I'm thinking it was the playoffs because, yeah, Mikhail shoots 36.9 from three, Landry Shamet 41.6, Cat 38.4, OG 39.5, Brunson 36.7, Josh Hart 39%. So Wemby, obviously, we don't want him. We don't want him going out to defend you guys. We want him camping inside because we don't want any free layups. Which teams never get free layups with Wemby inside. Like at the end of the day, three is bigger than two for sure. But technically, the most um the most efficient shot in the game is an open layup because like if you got shoot 70% from two versus 30% from three. I don't know the exact numbers, but like um three is bigger than two. But however, if you score more twos, then if you score more twos than threes by a wide margin, then yes, you should be shooting more twos. But obviously, Wemby is the best in the world at preventing those wide open twos. So you don't want him going out. So I'm thinking I don't know what they're gonna. So like I don't know what their exact adjustments are going to be. I'm thinking that they're going to start off with Wemby guarding either Josh Hart or Mikal Bridges. Maybe letting them shoot their threes to starts is what I'm thinking, or maybe probably not Bridges, probably OG is what I'm thinking. Even though he's been actually, jeez, I don't know. Like they've all been so hot. So like I guess we'll go Josh Hart to be safe, even though he's been pretty hot too. But I'm thinking Wemby guards Josh Hart, allows him to shoot to starts. I guess you have Champagny / Keldon Johnson guard Cats. You got to assume that he's not gonna be posting up. You're probably gonna assume that he's gonna be shooting the three ball more. But if he is posting up, obviously Wemby's gonna be the roamer to double, and then again you're gonna gamble on Josh Hart's not making as many threes this game, which who knows if that's gonna work out for game one. I don't know, but obviously Mitch Johnson is gonna knows how to make the adjustments more than I do. But then yeah, and then with the other, okay, I actually want to know your thoughts on that. Before we dive into anything else with the Spurs defense. So, anything you agree or disagree with what I just said there?
In terms of the Spurs defense, I don't think so. I think they have options, right? And I think the idea of putting Wemby on Josh Hart uh, is extremely intelligent.
Mhm.
I think that Wemby as the top rim protector in the league, you do not want to have him like waste his breath on chasing Cat off the 3-point line, right?
Mhm.
You can probably put Wemby on a block or just roam the paint, and then he has enough size and length to close out on a Josh Hart three, where you maybe don't necessarily need to close out as aggressively. Um, my question overall, I mean, the Spurs going to have great matchups and great defense. That it really is going to come down to the fact that will the Knicks come down to earth with their 3-point shooting?
That's right.
Because
100%.
all credit to the Knicks. I think they've been extremely impressive in this run. People like to question the teams they played. Fine, valid. At the end of the day, they took care of business, and they took care of business with authority. So aside from that, um, like you can't disagree or like brush past the fact that they're shooting like 44% from three over like
Yeah.
an extended period of time. And a lot of that is momentum. A lot of that is starting
Absolutely.
out 2 games in New York, winning those 2 games emphatically, and then kinda just carrying it through on the road. If they lose 1 of 2 or both in San Antonio, can they continue to shoot the ball the way they have? And I think that's what most Knicks fans would wonder, right? Or
Of course.
consider, valid thinking Knicks fans. Um, and this series, I wish I kinda didn't have, like, a want for a specific team to win in this series
Yes.
because I think overall it's really, really awesome. I think it's a really great matchup. Um, 2 teams that I don't think is there like anybody on either team that have finals experience?
Cornette.
That's right. Yeah, Luke
Yeah.
Cornett.
Yeah.
And he only has
I
5
think that's
games
it.
of,
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
he only has 5 games of relatively dominant hoops.
Yeah. So yeah, Cornets, and then I don't know how much OG played in the 2019 finals. It wasn't that much. That's all I know. I think he was injured for part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that.
and
Yeah, I think. Oh, Bridges too when he was on the Suns. Yeah,
that's right. Well,
yeah,
that's something I actually wanted to
yeah.
discuss. I'm not sure if you wanted to transition to that, but I wanted to
Sure.
discuss
Yeah.
Nick's
W- w-
defense against the
one.
Spurs.
Yeah. One more thing. Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about the Spurs defense. One more thing. Yeah, that's obviously, yeah, we talked about the hot hand. We talked about the value of Wemby and how they're gonna most address that. The last thing obviously is I don't know how much you could slow down Jalen Brunson in the playoffs. At the I've given him his flowers multiple times. I think the final nail in the coffin of me giving him his flowers was finally admitting that he's not even admitting, but saying that like okay, he's finally better than Donovan Mitchell. But the next thing is how exactly are the Spurs going to slow down Brunson? Because obviously Stephon Castle is one of the better defenders in the league. De'Aaron Fox is not as good as he used to be. Like I think he was great in 2023, but he's kind of slowed down since. But like he's still good. He still has value there. Dylan Harper is a rookie, so I'm sure that Devin Vassell is a long defender too, so I'm sure they'll have minutes thrown at him as well. Um, so I don't know exactly how they're going to address it. I know that the Cavs tried doubling him in game one. For whatever reason, then they decided to switch to single coverage with James Harden on him. I think the Spurs can afford to go single coverage a little more because they do have the personnel. The Cavs really didn't outside because like Max Strus and Dean Wade are fine defenders. They're not exactly the ideal defenders on Jalen Brunson. But I don't know. Like, do you just go the route of just throwing bodies at him and then just hoping that he eventually just gets fatigued by not having the same guy guard him, but by like maybe getting to throw up his game, or do you maybe double him for part of it? I don't really know the best way to go about it.
Say that last part.
No, I just don't know no, I just don't know the best way to go about guarding Brunson because they have a lot of bodies. Are they just going to stick with Castle? Or are they going to throw a bunch of bodies? I don't. I'm thinking the best way to go about it is probably just being in a variety of those guys, and then like some moments maybe towards the end of games you start to throw the double teams on them. It kind of backfired for the Cavs in game one, but like is it going to be the same thing? The same thing for the Spurs in this series? I don't know.
It's interesting. I think that there's a number of different ways you can look at it. You can go the path the Celtics have done against Embiid for a good chunk of or
Mm,
his entire career is let him get his 30 and 10 and limit everybody else. I'm not really sure if that's the right way to go about it in the situation because I think the Knicks are deep enough to where it's hard to limit everyone else, and Brunson does have the capability to not only go for 30 and 10, but, like, still make the right play and, um, make everyone else a little bit better around him. Um, if I'm if I'm the
yeah.
Spurs, I try a couple different things. I probably go Harper and Castle on him,
Mhm,
and just kind of not rotate, but kinda just see what you have.
I agree.
Um it's one of those things where you don't want to tire out two of your best offensive players, but I think these two guys have proven that they're not only are they good offensive players, but they're very good perimeter defenders. Um,
Absolutely.
so I think you have to not and again,
Mhm,
these guys are 22 and 23. They're not like a journeyman 31-year-old veteran all-star, right? These guys are young.
yeah.
They should be able to keep up with the increased minutes and the defensive and these guys, and not only like these guys just got off guarding very effectively, I will add, 7 games of a better player of
Mhm,
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
yeah.
So like it's a great tryout for them. But at the end of the day, they are getting a well rested Jalen Brunson. So what they brought in 7 games against the Thunder, they got to bring in this coming series.
Absolutely, and yeah, defensive intensity has been their thing all year long, so that's definitely something they're gonna have to continue on with for sure. But Tim Legler said it on Simmons' podcast a couple weeks ago. He said two things translate well in the playoffs: defense. It's defense. It's not defense and spacing. It's defense and something else. I forgot what it was, but um, yeah. But anyway, yeah, we'll go into how the Knicks are going to adjust to the Spurs. But you said you wanted to say something about Bridges, so why don't you dive into that?
It wasn't necessarily Bridges, it was more the defense
Yeah.
from the Knicks under the Spurs.
Hmm.
And I think the Knicks have a couple different options. I was actually talking to Johnny and Pete about this last night. Um, and what they do with Wemby, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I think they have a number of different options. I think that Cat should never guard
Single
Wemby. I don't.
not in single coverage at the very least, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any benefit to that. I don't think there's anything that he can do that would make it like beneficial to them. I think, and I mentioned this last night. I would consider putting OG or Bridges on Wemby
Mm.
because you
Yeah.
know you're going to bring the late double regardless. And if you're like the Knicks coaching staff, you got to think like you putting Cat on Wemby is pretty much just saying I'm going to put my big man on their big man. Kind of doesn't make sense to me in a way because I think Wemby's winning that matchup 7 out of 10 times.
Mhm.
Like I think he's getting to his spot, he's making the shot. I don't think Cat is a good enough defender to win that Wemby matchup more than half the time. So I think that if you are going to win the Wemby matchup, you're going to eventually bring doubles, relate doubles onto Wemby, just so you can win that matchup. And my thought process is why not put Cat on one of the Spurs, lesser talented wings like Keldon Johnson. You put OG on Wemby, and then once Wemby gets the ball in the post, you bring a late blitz double team. And I think
Yeah.
that's what I would do if I were the Knicks.
Mhm.
It'll be interesting though because I think there are a lot of a lot of moving chess pieces here. Um, it's
Because
going to be exciting to see.
then they're gonna have to have Brunson guard their second worst offensive player then. So,
Yeah.
that would likely be De'Aaron Fox because, yeah, Fox is obviously more athletic and speedier than Brunson, but however, it's his lack of jump shot which has hurt him in the past. So, yeah, it might be a lot of driving kicks this series for sure. It'll be driving kicks and it'll be drive-ins, and maybe just like and maybe driving dumps to Wemby for sure. However, they're definitely be closing Wemby off for sure, but we'll see how that works out for sure. And the one more final element to that is Mitchell Robinson because he would be the guy guarding Cat for sure. Sorry, not guarding Cat, guarding Wemby again. That likely wouldn't be single coverage. It would be um I don't even know. Like it might be what you said. Like it might be OG guarding Wemby with Robinson being the roamer. Kind of like how the Celtics did with Horford and Porzingis when Tatum was guarding Gafford. But obviously this is obviously a much more severe adjustments that they're going to have to make. But at the end of the day, Mitchell Robinson, yeah. So he's a great offensive rebounder. He's a very good defender and everything. With that, at the end of the day, though, he just broke it. Not only did he break his finger, but like Shams report released a report today. I really haven't. I didn't dive too deep into that, but Hackimich is somewhat effective. It's going to be even more effective when he has a broken hand. Um, so I don't know how much of a factor Robinson's going to be. If Robinson was like an average free throw shooter, I think he'd be playing at least probably more than 20 minutes a night. Like he plays like 19 with that, but just because of his ability, or his like more so his inability to shoot free throws. So I think that low key might be one thing that might hurt them because he played 14 minutes per game against the Cavs. I don't see how he plays more than that against the Spurs. Like if he's hurting his hand, but I could be wrong there.
Mitch is such an anomaly, I feel like.
Yeah.
I I I think a lot of people recognize his value. I
Mhm.
think him on the offensive glass is probably the best offensive rebounder in the league.
Mhm.
Um, w w when, like, taking into account, like, minutes per game and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think the Hack-a-Mitch thing is kinda like I mean, we said it last year when the Celtics were playing them and they did the Hack-a-Mitch thing. We thought it was kinda bush league basketball. We didn't
Yeah,
really like
definitely.
it.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, at the end of the day, like, it if a NBA player can't make free throws at like a 60% clip, like you should probably work on that. But I still think it's kind of bush league. Um, it'll be interesting to see if how he can play with that finger. I think
Yeah.
his like role doesn't really like, and free throws aside, because I think like he's gonna shoot those at like a terrible clip regardless.
Yeah.
Um, I think his role doesn't really need him to use that finger that often, right? Or he can like
Mhm.
he can like compensate for that, right? In a way.
Again, yeah.
Um, so I don't think that I wouldn't be too concerned if I was a Knicks fan.
Mhm.
Um, but I think we're gonna find out like after game one, we'll know what Mitch Robinson will be this series.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you definitely made it a point where like, yeah, he's a bad free throw shooter. He's a bad free throw shooter already. Like, it's not like the broken hand is going to make him that much worse of a free throw shooter. So, um, yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, just like so many factors to consider. We talked about defensive matchups for all of them. We talked about adjustments they're going to make. Obviously, yeah, like obviously, yeah, like we're kind of going basics here, but yeah, like obviously both the Knicks and the Spurs, especially the Knicks, have spent hours and hours diving into each of these teams. So like yeah, like both teams are very well coached, and yeah, they're gonna know what adjustments to make down the line. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it feels like, yeah, we just threw like a lot of possibilities on there, and yeah, like I'm very interested to see how each team goes out in game one for sure. Um, so with that being said, let's give our predictions. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you have yours set already, but yeah, if you need more time, I can give mine. But if you want to give yours, I don't. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
Why don't you go first?
So it's tough, just because, like I said, defense does translate indeed. With everything, but at the end of the day, I think that experience matters a little bit more in the playoffs, and this is where I'd usually break down and say like, oh, the 40-20 rule and everything. I think that the Knicks went 40 and 21. So they're the closest thing to the 40-20 rule, literally. And last year, the Pacers nearly won the finals last year. They took it 7 without the 40-20 rule. So usually when something breaks, it usually breaks the other way. So it'll be very, I think at least 4 or 5 of those games will come down to be very close games. It'll come down to the clutch gene. And I think I'm going to take the Knicks in 6 games.
Wow, I'm glad you think that because I had the Knicks at 6 as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that they're on a heater, and sometimes with all this is the constant across all sports leagues. Momentum
Oh yeah.
sometimes trumps, a team that's better or a team that's more favored. Because I think the Spurs are pretty heavily favored this series,
Mhm.
but I think it's sometimes foolish to question momentum.
That's for sure. And yeah, momentum. Who has the hotter hand? Yeah, happens with a lot of teams for sure. People say they might slow down, but sometimes they just don't. And yeah, and who knows what happens, because yeah, we could easily say yeah, what'll happen next year, but it doesn't matter what happened next year right now. It happens. Yeah, it matters who's been better now, who's been better than the moments. And I think the Knicks have been very few teams in history have done what the Knicks have done until now. So will carry over. Time will tell, but looking like not many teams can slow them down. Anyway, so yeah, we got one more topic to talk about, and that was Nick Wright's club superstar. So yeah, before I reveal anything, I'm just gonna explain what it is real quick. So back in like 2020, 2021, there was always the topic as to what a superstar is, and you guessed it, it was because, and he like, and this isn't me saying this isn't me saying it. I watched the segment today. It was literally Nick Wright saying we started this because a lot of people were anointing Jason Tatum a superstar before he believed that was the case. Again, like this thing is because of Jason Tatum. I'm not, again. That's not, those aren't my words. Those are Nick Wright's words. So um so his argument is that if you throw around the word superstar so many times, it loses its meaning. So his argument is that there are only you can only have 12 superstars at a time in the league. There are 12 players. I don't know if that number's too low. I don't know if that number's too high. I personally would probably add a couple more people, especially if you consider um all things considered. But yeah, we'll dive into it, and I'm gonna go over each. I'm gonna throw. Yeah, I didn't have time to edit. Yeah, they didn't post the picture until 10 minutes before the pod. So like I'm yeah like I'm not yeah. So describe what each thing means, and then once I reeled, and then after that we'll dive into which one it is. So I'm going to share my screen right now, not my screen. So as you can see, so let me so on the you can't see my mouse, but on the bottom towards the left, you see the bouncer kind of sticking his hand up, not allowing Jalen Brown, Tyrese Maxey, I believe it's Kawhi Leonard, and Cooper Flag. They're wanting to get in, but like they're being prevented from getting in. Um, I don't know what the hell Kawhi's doing. Is that I don't know if that's a aspiration joke that he's like trying to blow something up, or I can't tell what that is, um but on the other hand, there's another bouncer. He's kicking out Kevin Durant and
Like
Donovan Mitchell.
Kawhi, is he the one watering that flower?
Oh, is that what that is? He's what? Okay. So he's watering a flower. So I don't know what.
Wasn't that his thing that he got paid for on the side from Steve
So
Ballmer?
yeah, the aspiration. So I don't. Yes. So was the name of the company? I think. So yeah, like what's his
Okay.
name? Yeah, one of the guys just got sentenced to jail yesterday for it. So
Oh, jeez.
Um, yeah, so I don't know exactly what's the punishment's gonna be. Like, they're gonna have to punish them somehow, but, like, I feel like it's gonna be kind of snuck under the rug because no one really cares about these things.
Yeah, who cares?
But yeah, so yeah, both Kevin Durant and Donovan Mitchell both getting kicked out. They were in the club last year, but not in the club this year, according to Nick Wright. So, but anyway, so to on the second floor, however, keep in mind, by the way, the second and the first floor, there's no difference between the two. Like, they're just happen to be there. So Steph Curry is still considered part of club superstar, older guy, but um, I'm wondering if this is like a lifetime achievement thing because, and we'll dive into that later. But in the second room is Wemby, Anthony Edwards, and Cade Cunningham. Both Cade and Wemby are new guys. So like, those were the two guys replacing Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant. Um, for Wemby, you could see kind of to the right, they did have to build a higher ceiling because obviously he's so damn tall, but um and also on the last one on the second floor is our guy Jason Tatum. Last year in the picture he had a boots on. This year he does not, obviously, because he came back and really didn't lose a step. So it was pretty easy to keep him on there. Speaking of Achilles injuries, though, Tyrese Halliburton remains on the list. He doesn't on the graphic. Apparently, Wright did not really care that that he tore his Achilles. At the end of the day, his mindset is he made the finals last year, and we shouldn't just totally forget about that just because he got injured. Will that backfire next year? Who knows? But yeah, it's Halliburton and Brunson. It's literally, I think it's the same exact picture as it was last year. And then the middle top is Shea and Nikola Jokic. The MVP room. The two of them have won. Jokic won his first MVP in 2021, I believe. So what is that? 5 out of the last 6 MVPs besides Embiid there in 2023. And then in the top right is, I don't even know what room that is. I know last year was considered the Cancun room. However, I think that's I don't even know what you
That's the
consider
room
that.
that he. Those are all guys that he loves. Maybe
Those
not
are
Giannis, actually.
I think he does like Giannis actually. But yeah, LeBron, Luca, and Giannis, both all three guys are in there. Um, so this is one. It's probably the toughest one that I've had to think about. Like usually, it's pretty easy for me to think about because like I keep an active list as to who's better and everything, and I do have a list for sure. But would I rank the top 12 guys for club superstar? I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on this, John?
I think I agree with this. I think I agree with the entirety of this club.
Hmm.
Um, I'd actually. I honestly, there's one thing I disagree with, and I think that it's a little bit biased.
Hmm.
But I think I'm valid in it. I think that
Okay.
Jalen Brown should be in there over Cade Cunningham.
Okay.
I think Cade is one of my favorite players in the league. He's very good, but at the end of the day, zero playoff success. Like we're coming off last year lost to Brunson. This year, very well could have lost to a pretty terrible Magic team,
That's right.
and then lost to a Cavs team who I think is not really that impressive either.
Nope.
And if you're going to kick Donovan Mitchell out of here, then you should be kicking Cade out.
I
right?
agree.
Like that's how I see it.
100%. Yeah.
And if you're not going to let Jalen Brown in, and I've been very critical of Jalen Brown recently. I think he had a very bad playoffs, um, and I think he's been kind of a moron in the media. But at the end of the day, like I think he deserves to be there over Cade Cunningham. He's an NBA champion. He's an NBA Finals MVP, Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He should have made NBA All NBA first team over Cade.
Agreed.
I think the only reason why Cade got there is because these voters they look at the box scores and they're like, oh well, Cade Cunningham averaged 8 assists per game. It's like, yeah, very
Yeah.
cool, but like, what's like? There's no like Jalen Brown was more integral to the Celtics' success this year by than Cade Cunningham. Like,
Totally agree.
and that's my main argument. I would
Mhm.
say.
Yeah.
I think Halliburton and Brunson. Halliburton still there, very valid. Brunson there, valid. Obviously, Shea and Jokic, great. Giannis, Luka, Braun, of course. Steph, of course. Ant Edwards. I think I really like Ant.
Mhm.
Still a little overrated in my opinion.
Mhm.
I think that Ant is like and overrated isn't really like fair to him to say, but I think that other players in the league, other like top 10 players, right, have different standards than him. Like he
I agree.
loses in the second and third round every year. Like
Yeah.
and I get it. He's like 24, 25, but like Tatum was 22. He lost in the Eastern Conference Finals and he got like shredded. He was
Yeah.
23, he
Every
lost in the
every time.
finals, he
Yeah.
got shredded. And like
So.
and
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah, yeah. I was gonna move on to the next thing. Yeah, yeah, because I agree with everything you said about ants. I, I will say though that making it to the back-to-back Western Conference Finals, I think that bought him time too. Even
Sure.
even though he
Yeah.
lost, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think him getting injured also affected that. But so in my opinion, I think that there are eight untouchables. I think eight guys without a doubt you cannot cut them. So I got SGA, Wemby, Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, Luca, and Brunson. I think based on what we've seen in the past 2-3 years, all of those guys have had playoffs. Outside of Giannis, Giannis is kind of an anomaly because he's been dealing with bad luck with like front office decisions and everything. But at the end of the day, everyone knows that he's a top 8 player in the league. Top 3 or top 5, definitely in my opinion. But those 8 guys need to be in there. So the question really becomes: do LeBron and Steph deserve to be there for lifetime achievement's sake? Because in my opinion, I don't know if as a matter of fact, I do know. I don't think that LeBron James is top is no long. I don't think that LeBron James is a top 12 player in the NBA anymore. I think that Steph is right there. I do, however, have him right outside the top. Like, as a matter of fact, I have Steph, KD, LeBron, 13, 14, 15. So those are literally the 3 guys that I would leave out. I'm gonna keep it consistent. I am gonna go with my top 12 guys because I think that just makes the most sense. Because what are you not going to call like a younger guy a superstar just because LeBron's been playing longer? Like, really, at the end of the day, like he's like the next 2 guys I would include are Donovan Mitchell and Cade Cunningham. Both of those guys were better than LeBron James this year. I know LeBron played great in the playoffs this year, but as far as it goes for building to win a championship, I'd definitely rather have Donovan Mitchell. I'd definitely rather have Cade Cunningham. So I'm leaving those guys in. And then the last 2 guys I'm adding in are Kawhi Leonard and Jalen Brown. I think that yeah, so both of them were like the first 2 guys left off the first team All NBA. Kawhi Leonard obviously has his injury struggles, but this year he wasn't injured at all. Kind of this Clippers started off slow. A lot of that was because of the Chris Paul nonsense, but the Clippers were one of the best teams in the league for like the last like 50 games or so. But then, however, they ended up losing the playing game, which if you start off the season 6-20 something, you're gonna have a smaller margin for error. But with that said, I think the Kawhi Leonard is without a doubt a top 12 player in the league. If you want to keep LeBron and Steph there forever until they retire, sure. But I don't know, just like the notion you have to keep the older guys there just because like of everything they've accomplished. I think you're just kind of taking away from the fact that some of those younger, at the end of the day, like young guys usually end up surpassing old guys, and I think that we're in that era of basketball right now.
And one of those things that I will say, one argument against having Jalen Brown in Club Superstar is that, like, if you want to say both Tatum and Brown are in Club Superstar, yet you couldn't pack up Sixers and 6.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I think that's an argument that most
Mhm.
people could make. But I
Mhm.
agree with you that LeBron and Steph aren't necessarily um, the number one or
Mhm.
necessarily superstars anymore. But maybe their career kind of takes them a little farther than a normal player would with their production.
Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, yeah, like, yeah, the last thing, yeah, like I do want to address Tyrese Halliburton because he's the only one that I didn't mention, but I'm fine if you want to keep him on there. He brought his team to the finals last year, but at the end of the day, if you're going to kick Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant off for being disappointing in the playoffs, Tyrese Halliburton didn't play this year, so
Yeah,
um, but yeah, I do think the KD is out of there because of arguments that have nothing to do with basketball. At the end of the day, he did kind of f up the locker room in the Rockets. So like obviously
yeah,
his on off numbers were very good this year because of how great he was, but the reality was the Rockets kind of fell apart this year after the actually they got hot towards the end of the year, but that was really because of the strength of schedule. But yeah, they kind of fell apart at right shortly after the whole group chat thing, which like I know like Katie's whole notion towards his entire career was like, oh, I only care about hoops, I don't care about all that other nonsense. No, you do care about all that other nonsense. Why would you?
yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, but yeah, I did want to give a couple other shout outs though. Yeah, yeah, obviously, yeah, I think the Maxi being online is the perfect placement. I literally have them after all the guys that I mentioned. Yeah, I named 15 guys plus Halliburton. Outside of that, I had Devin Booker, Tyrese Maxey, Chet Holmgren, and then the two guys after that would be Karl Anthony Towns and Evan Mobley. So, yeah, yeah, shout out to Mobley for being good in the playoffs this year, by the way.
yeah,
But yeah, so um, yeah, overall, not much to complain about. One more thing to point out is that Nick Wright said it'll be interesting over the offseason if LeBron, if like in the guy's top rights, if we see both LeBron and Giannis in different jerseys. Who knows if that's gonna be the case? But
yeah,
I think I think everyone else is pretty safe though with okay, except for KD, obviously, with their jersey as where they are now. But who knows? Yeah. All right. So yeah, game one is tomorrow. Give me 1 second. Let me just remove this. Yeah, game one tomorrow. It's gonna be one hell of a series. I'm definitely looking forward to watching. What more? For programming sake, Jesus, that isn't looking too well. But for programming sake, you see in the bottom here, Fluent versus Show versus everyone Wednesdays at 8:30. That is not the case. We are not going to be going live tomorrow during 8:30 for obvious reasons. We got the NBA Finals on. We don't want to be. Obviously, we want to watch the NBA Finals. We also don't want you guys to be tuning into our show while we want you guys to be watching the finals as well. So that's why we're not going live tomorrow. We're taking the week off. But I don't know if there's a game next week for Wednesday. I have to check that out. But regardless, yeah, that's our show. John, thanks for coming on. I know it was a long day for work for you, but yeah, I appreciate you coming on right after. But yeah, be sure to follow me on all social media platform at All American Hooper on TikTok and Instagram, at American Hooper on Twitter. Not this week, but weeks after that. Be sure to check us out. It's Fluent versus Chill versus Everyone Wednesdays at 8:30. Be sure to check out my most recent article. I wrote out. I talked about it last week. The show. I wrote out my top 25 playoff performances of the 21st century. So be sure to check that out. It's one of my favorite pieces that I've written. It's a very long article for sure, but you don't have to read the entire thing. I just want you, if you want, you can only just scroll through the names because it's definitely one of the most fun. It's definitely one of the most fun things I've done, like as far as it goes for writing. But yeah, that's our show. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the On Groups podcast. Until next time, keep grinding and stay hooping. Have a great night, everyone.